You are listening to TBR Radio Presents The DIXIE Heritage Show, with your host, the Director of DIXIE Heritage, Dr. Ed DeVries.
Those of you who read my weekly DIXIE Heritage newsletter, you know that this past issue we had what was basically an obituary or a memorial article that I had written to my good friend Dr. Adrian Kreig. And Dr. Adrian was down in Florida. He had been retired there for a number of years, but he had passed away back in October. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that. I knew he'd gone into the hospital, and I had sent an email to check on him, and I never heard back. And here, a couple weeks ago, I was cleaning out the inbox, and sometimes hundreds of emails just get lost in there. And one of them that got lost was from his wife, and she was telling me that he had passed, and that was back in October. And so it was regrettable that I didn't get that message sooner. But I wanted to at least write a few words and pay tribute to my dear friend, Dr. Adrian Kreig. Before he had passed, we had some interview footage. Never did anything with it. But I've decided that today I want to kind of put it together. I don't know that I necessarily want to call this a tribute show, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Dr. Adrian had written several books. One of them was called Race, Sex, and Truth, and it was the revisionist history of our age. It was the real facts, if you will, relating to race, sex, and truth. Not the stuff you're fed in school and in college by academics, but the real facts about the people who financed wars, who enforced political correctness. Just a very profound book. He wrote another book called Invasions, Documented Historical Relevance. Because we live in bizarre times and our government is incapacitated. Basically, the Democrats manage more congressional investigations, and we can't keep up with it all. They're investigating Obamacare, they're investigating tax reform, they're investigating corporate tax reduction, they're investigating Donald Trump's tax returns, and so forth. Again, a book that was even more relevant now probably than when he wrote it. The book Social Compliance, which is a history book of the 21st century cesspool. He said this, he said that today's government is not a swamp. He said because swamps have animals. Washington, D.C. has cheats and liars and croofs, grafting, slandering, and a veritable community of slime and payola. Again, very relevant, very profound book. He wrote another book, Turning the Tide, A History of the Modern World. And it was basically the real history of the 21st century, without all the government lies and all the media lies and all the media spin. Other books as well. Just, he was a profound author. And he's still maintaining his webpage. I say he's maintaining it, his family is maintaining it. A to Z Publications.com. A to Z Publications.com. And you can get his books there. And so I want to bring to your attention this great man, this great friend, Dr. Adrian Kreig. We'll start with Dr. Adrian telling us about the problem with America's two-party political system.
Yeah, I don't think there is a two-party system. Let's look at this from a different standpoint of view. We run an election every 2 years for Congress, every 6 for the Senate, every 4 for the presidency. Incumbents win about 87 to 89% of the races. The reason for that is that the system is fixed. The system is fixed so that the 2 major party candidates, whichever they are, will win the election. I think everybody can agree that the outcome of these elections is the same. It doesn't seem to make any difference if a Republican or a Democrat is elected. We wind up with the same mess every time. The Republicans say we're going to give you less government, they give us more government. The Democrats say they're going to give us more government, they give us more government. It doesn't seem to make any difference which party wins. We wind up with the same mess every time. And I think we don't have 2 political parties, we have a political system. In fact, I wrote a book about that called The System, which outlines the reasons for my assumption that we don't have two political parties, but we have a political system.
So then how do we go about fixing or changing that system?
I think the best way to do that is to look at successful countries that have that are democratic and are either republics or confederations. Switzerland is a confederation, pretty much the most successful country in the world. They have advantages over us in that they're a very small country. It's very mountainous. Military incursions into the country from the outside have been completely unsuccessful. The last attempt was in 1940. Hitler wanted to attack Switzerland in a thing called Operation Tannenbaum. His general staff told him he would lose two entire army groups, about 100,000 men, and they would not take Switzerland. That's because of the mountains, so they have an advantage. They have also a big disadvantage. They have no raw materials whatsoever. They have a different political system from us in some respects and very similar in others. In other words, they patterned their system into a two-chamber system. They also have a Senate and a House, pretty much apportioned the same way we do. Their presidency, however, is completely different. They have a number of presidents, 7 actually. They're not presidents, they're co-equal partners in leadership. They nominate from their group of men or women, they're usually men and women on the thing, a spokesperson. However, with 7 people, mostly each one in charge of some branch, major branch of the government, you wind up having to deal with consensus, which is better than a single man's opinion or resolution. So I think that is one solution to our problem. I think in reality, the only way this is going to change in America, the absolutely only way, is for people to vote for candidates that are not members of either of the two parties, and that means school board elections, local elections, state elections, federal elections. There has to be third-party participation. Switzerland has about 20 political parties. Italy has 15 or 20. England has a whole bunch. America is one of the very few countries that only has 2 real political parties. Outside of the 2 political parties, we only have 1 person in our legislative branch that is not a member of either of the 2 parties. That's Bernie Sanders. He's a socialist, and he votes with the Democrats. So I think the solution for America is a 3rd, 4th, and 5th party so that there'll be actual discussion. There is one more issue that has to be addressed, and that's the issue of qualification for voter participation. In other words, for the ability of people to vote for people. This is a very bad system in America. We have states that charge $25,000 for a candidate to be listed on the ballot in their state. That's ridiculous. I do not think that a charge above $25 should be legal anywhere. Why should somebody have to pay $25 to be listed to run for a political office? That's wrong. I think we have to take the money out of politics. We have to have laws to prevent these horrendous presidential elections in which each party spends $1 billion. Senate, $10 million. Congress, $2 or $3 million. This has to be ended. People have to run on their merit, not on who pays to have them run for office so that they can get favors.
Your web browser and type in www.barnesreview.org and discover the Barnes Review magazine. In the Barnes Review, you will read vignettes of man, from the prehistoric to the very recent, from forgotten races and civilizations to first-person accounts of World War II and the late Cold War. There is no more interesting magazine published today, nor a more significant and important subject than real history. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review. You can subscribe to receive the Barnes Review magazine in its print form, or in convenient electronic delivery. Our host has been a subscriber to both formats for years. So visit www.barnesreview.org and subscribe to the Barnes Review.
You had mentioned Switzerland. What our listeners probably do not know is that many, many years ago, you and your family emigrated from Switzerland to the United States. Of course, you grew up here and you lived the lion's share of your life here, but you are originally from Switzerland and you still have family there and you still maintain ties with that family. You still go back and forth to the ancestral homeland and so forth. So you have some authority with which to speak about Switzerland. But there are serious differences between the United States and Switzerland. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Switzerland is a confederation, a democratic confederation. America used to be a republic. It's now a democracy. Politically, they are very similar. Both have two-chamber systems. Both have reasonable freedom for their citizens. While America has massive natural resources, Switzerland has none. Switzerland has a higher standard of living than America does. I think Switzerland is number 7 in the world, America is number 10. As far as the best places to live in the world, Zurich is 11, Geneva is number 12, the first city in America is Honolulu is number 27. I think that the biggest difference between Switzerland and America that is most obvious when you travel there is infrastructure. In defense of America, infrastructure for America is a very difficult problem because of the size of the country. When you, however, consider that Switzerland is very mountainous, in fact, Switzerland has more mountains than the 30 eastern states of the United States combined, we can see a great difference. Swiss transportation systems are completely integrated. If you take a bus and you want to go to another city, and you would probably do that by train because it's the quickest, cheapest, and most efficient way to do it, the bus will arrive at the train station 3 to 5 minutes before the train departs for the city you're going to. Let me give you an example of how developed their infrastructure is. We were in Klosters, Switzerland, and we wanted to fly to Tampa, Edelweiss Air, Zurich, direct flight to Tampa. Klosters is a village, and that's what all it is. It's not a city, it's a village in the Alps. It's serviced by a narrow gauge rail because normal gauge rails can't function in the Alps. They require too much radius for making turns, so Alpine rails are narrow gauge and they're all private. So we went to the railroad station, to this private railroad, the Ratchibahn, and I said, listen, we're going to fly to Tampa tomorrow. And they said, oh yes, you can have your tickets here, you can deposit your luggage here 24 hours before departure, and you can pick your luggage up in Tampa. You can get your boarding passes here in the railroad station. Now just imagine, this is a village in the Alps. We went to the railroad station at noon, delivered our baggage, got our boarding passes, didn't have to touch our bags until we arrived in Tampa. You can't do that anywhere in America. The entire transportation systems in Switzerland, air, ground, rail, boat, ship, vernaculars, cable cars, everything is seamlessly connected. You can buy a rail pass, gets you anywhere in a country. Rail pass good for a month, You don't pay for tickets, you just go on and show your rail pass. This is, without question, the biggest difference. The second difference is in income. Swiss income is about, on average, $3,000 higher than in America. Taxes, Swiss taxes are much, much lower. Swiss corporate taxes are a fraction of the 30-some percent, 35% that we pay here. Personal income taxes are about 10%. I think these are the biggest differences between Switzerland and America, and they are quite apparent. It's interesting, we were on a funicular in the Alps. We met some Italian tourists. By the way, there were almost no American tourists in Switzerland. It's too expensive. But there were a lot of Italians, Germans, Austrians. There's a lot of Germans and Austrians working in Switzerland. About 20% of the nation's labor force is imported foreign labor. So we were talking to this Italian fellow, and I said, well, Switzerland is at least 3 times as expensive as Italy. Why did you come to Switzerland and Italy, from Italy? And he said, first of all, everything works. Everything is on time. I can set my watch with the railroad. Everything is clean. Everything is seamless. And it's a beautiful place. That sums up the difference.
Extra, read all about it.
If you're like me and you like to be on the cutting edge of honest news and accurate information, you like to hear about the latest financial trends and to know what's happening around the world and right here in the United States, the things that can directly impact you, your life, and the life of your family. And if you're like me, you do not rely on the mainstream media to obtain this information because, frankly, you know that you just can't trust them. Fortunately, there is an alternative news outlet with a long-established track record for honesty and integrity, and that is the American Free Press. AFP is the preeminent alternative, independent news source for honest, hard-working, truth-loving Americans. AFP is the antithesis of the controlled, lamestream media. AFP is employee-owned and has been so since its founding. Because of that, AFP never has and never will allow advertisers or special interests or big money to dictate what appears in the pages of the American Free Press newspaper. 26 times a year, the American Free Press newspaper can be delivered to your door, packed with the kind of uncensored news that I know you're going to appreciate. AFP covers the stories and tells the truth that the lamestream media is frankly scared to touch. And AFP offers real, on-the-scene reporting and commentary, the likes of which you will never see in the Washington Post, the New York Times, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, or just about any other lamestream news source that you can think of. That's right, there's only one national populist news weekly staffed by an unsurpassed team of veteran investigative journalists who will dare to rip the veil off of many of the major news stories that are being censored and suppressed. AFP publishes exciting, in-depth, uncensored news and information that's grassroots and patriotic, information that Americans need to know in order to combat the growing police state. If you're ever dissatisfied with your subscription to the American Free Press, their guarantee is that you just drop them an email and they will gladly refund the unused portion of your subscription. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.americanfreepress.net. Once again, www.americanfreepress.net. And find out about the American Free Press. Do it today.
Extra, read all about it.
Let's finish out today's broadcast with Dr. Adrian telling us about a few of his books.
Turning the Tide is a history of the modern world. This would be the first 20 years of the 21st century. It's 249 blacklisted pages. It's like most of my books, blacklisted. Instead of having footnotes, the information is included in text. It makes it somewhat easier and quicker to read. It has a 3-page dictionary, 9-page index of people, a 5-page index of issues, a 37-book bibliography, and it consists of 29 chapters. The first casualty of war is usually truth. And with this book, I try to expose the fact that history written after the Great War, World War I, as well as World War II, was fallacious. It was completely wrong. It's interesting to note that after World War I, in the Weimar Republic, was the foundation of the problems that developed thereafter. And of course, the Armistice Treaty of World War I was the cause of World War II. This is usually glossed over by historians or not reported on. The Armistice of World War I caused the collapse of Germany. The Deutschmark collapsed the entire German economic system, and that brought on the movement toward National Socialism. Stalin organized a communist movement in Germany. This is all exposed in this book, and it explains how it was done, who did it, and the consequences, which was the Second World War. A war that was totally unnecessary and was simply caused by the greed of the people who orchestrated the armistice. Practical Economics for Millennials. This book is 247 pages, 26 chapters, 7-page index, 4.5 page of index issues. I wrote this book when it became very apparent that millennials really don't understand economics. This is, of course, supported by the fact that millennials in large percentage support socialism, which is an economic system that does not work. Our entire society has been induced into Keynesian economics, which was the development of the New Hampshire Bretton Woods Conference of the 44 victors of World War II. Keynesian economics are what is causing our entire economic problem worldwide today. It's a really horrible idea. It's the uncoupling of monetary values from hard assets. It was Keynesian's idea, and his name was Lord John Maynard Keynes, I think it is properly pronounced, that at the close of World War II, the economy of the world could not be reconstructed while the value of currency was tied to gold. Thus, they created this paper money, which is continuously inflated, which is the cause of our inflation. And it is why the value of the dollar has continuously, since the conference in New Hampshire, declined. Now, since the beginning of 1944, by at least 140%. I think this book is really of value to young people, especially if they've gone to college and been indoctrinated by socialist professors. Race, Sex, Truth. It's 201 pages, 5-page index of events, 6-page index of people, 79 book bibliography, 55 text notes, It was written in 2019. The book has some special features. It lists all the Ziacons that institute American war policies. It's a book that I think Tulsi Gabbard would really like. She's opposed to war, as I am. I think you should really get a copy because it's a really, really good book on these issues. It disputes things like the Canadian claim that there are 14 genders. I've just heard recently, I think last week, that some university is now proposing that there are 56 genders. I'm supposing that at the rate we're going, it'll be up to over 100 sometime in the near future. This is ridiculous. There are two sexes, male and female. There's no additional ones. That's it. It's over. I'm sort of perplexed by this because transgenders account for under 0.6% of the U.S. population. So this would be, according to UCLA study in 2017. I think that a lot of this information is really hard to understand if you don't realize that these are wedges used by the New World Order to control society that have nothing to do with reality or truth. They're simply control devices. Race, Sex, and Truth is a very interesting book, and I think it's already, by the way, blacklisted, so that's just to let you know.
Hello, I'm Tom Strain, Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief of the Sons of Confederate Veterans. The Confederate flag, Confederate symbols, and the reputation of our Confederate ancestors has come under attack. The Sons of Confederate Veterans is actively fending off our detractors, but there is only so much that we can do. We need your help. Contact your local, state, and national elected politicians and tell them that you will not tolerate these attacks on our heritage. You can also visit scv.org, download an application to join us in our fight to preserve our Southern heritage. Visit scv.org today. If you don't have a Confederate ancestor and you are tired of American history disappearing, you can assist us by becoming a friend of the SCV. Please visit scvheritagedefense.org and make a donation to the Heritage Defense Fund. We hope that you will join us in the fight to defend the Confederate soldiers' good name.
That's about all the time that we're going to have for this week's TBR Radio Presents the Dixie Heritage Show. I would like to encourage you to go to Dr. Kreig's website, A2Z Publications, that is A2Zpublications.com, and to check out his great books. Very profound, very deep reading, but very necessary reading for a lot of us. Go to www.dixiheritage.net, www.dixiheritage.net. Sign up for a free weekly delivery of my email newsletter into your inbox. When you do, I will also send you absolutely free a copy of my ebook, The Truth About the Confederate Battle Flag. Both of those will be an encouragement to you, and you can check out the bookstore there at www.dixiheritage.net as well. We're getting closer to Christmas here, so I can't guarantee that if you order a book that we'll be able to get it to you in time for Christmas. We will do our best, but these books do make great gifts. We also are looking for advertisers for the 2021 year of the Dixie Heritage Show and for my other show, TBR Radio Presents the TBR History Hour. If you have a product, a service, an organization, a book that you'd like to highlight, let us know. Our advertising rates are very reasonable, and we do reach a considerable audience. Also, if you are listening on YouTube, please click like and subscribe and give us the thumbs up, because that helps out this channel tremendously. We are, of course, going into Christmas. By the time you hear my voice again, the Christmas holiday will have probably passed. Or actually, it may be Christmas Day, because next Friday is Christmas Day, and we are going to have a special show for you, a special Christmas show for you, as we have done for the last few years. Anyways, we are out of time, And so from all of us here at TBR Radio, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. I want to wish you a time of joy and a time of family and a time that you can just enjoy yourself. And I know there are those that are telling you that you shouldn't gather with your family, that you shouldn't maybe, go to a loved one's house, or, they're telling you in some way that you should not do the things that you would normally do at Christmas time because of the pandemic. And I just want to encourage you not to let the evil ones steal your joy this Christmas season. Jesus said he came, the reason he was born, the reason he was that baby in the manger. Jesus said, I have come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly. Anyways, we are out of time. So from all of us here at TBR Radio, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you again next week. Until then, God bless.